TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Tensions flared up along Israel's multiple fronts over the weekend, including in Jerusalem, where clashes on the Temple Mount add fuel to the fire. Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz warns Jerusalem's enemies not to test Israel's qualitative, military, and civic edge. A rocket launched out of southern Lebanon toward Israel's northern communities last night draws an IDF artillery response. Tensions flared up along Israel's multiple fronts over the weekend, including in Jerusalem, where clashes on the Temple Mount by radical Islamist elements persistently add fuel to the fire. Israeli police forces were forced to intervene on the Temple Mount's plaza twice on Friday in response to violent riots that erupted following the early morning and subsequent midday prayer services at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. During the first reported riot, which occurred around 4 a.m. at a time when roughly 100,000 Muslim worshippers conducted their Islamic Fajr prayer, hundreds of rioters hurled rocks and firecrackers towards the back of the Western Wall, forcing police to respond with crowd dispersal means, effectively thwarting the attacking assailants from endangering the Jewish worshippers who were praying at the Western Wall plaza below. During this specific incident, Palestinian rioters sustained serious wounds, while dozens of others reportedly sustained light injuries, mostly as a result of tear gas inhalation. It is important to highlight that during both said riots, Israeli riot police forces refrained from intervening until after the prayer services were concluded. Subsequently, at approximately 10 p.m. on Friday evening, Islamist militants launched 2 rockets from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip toward Israel's southern communities. The IDF spokesperson's unit informed TV7 that while one projectile exploded in an uninhabited area in southern Israel, the second rocket failed to cross into Israeli territory, exploding instead inside the Palestinian enclave. No injuries or damage were reported. Roughly 4.5 hours later, at approximately 2:40 a.m., another rocket was launched toward Israeli territory. Thankfully, the projectile once again exploded in an uninhabited area, causing no injuries or damage. Meanwhile, the Israeli defense establishment decided to refrain from conducting retaliatory strikes at this stage, opting to respond to the indiscriminate rocket fire by means of economic measures. In line with the defense establishment's recommendation, Jerusalem's top defense official, namely Defense Minister Benny Gantz, approved the immediate closure of the commercial Erez border crossing, which connects between Israel and the Gaza Strip. The announced decision effectively prevents thousands of Palestinian laborers, merchants, and exports into Israel. Israeli officials highlighted that this decision was a pragmatic one, stressing further that unless quiet is restored to Israel's southern communities, the Islamist Hamas will bear the consequences. Meanwhile, despite relative quiet prevailing on Saturday, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz decided on Sunday, following a security situation assessment, to maintain the closure on the Gaza Strip. Speaking after concluding the situation assessment in the IDF Southern Command headquarters, Defense Minister Benny Gantz asserted that while Israel is willing to show civic and economic generosity toward the Palestinians, it will not reward terrorist organizations and instigators which blatantly use the Muslim month of Ramadan for the purpose of instigating terror.
סיימתי הערכת מצב בפיקוד הדרום. כוחות הביטחון ממשיכים בפריסה ובפעילות בכלל הגזרות בכדי להגן על אזרחי ישראל. רמדאן אמור להיות חג של תפילה והתכנסות משפחתית. לצערי יש מי שמחזיקים בידיהם אבנים ובקבוקי תבערה במקום ספרי קודש. ישראל פועלת מולם ובמקביל מאפשרת את חופש הפולחן. בימים האחרונים הארגונים בעזה הראו לתוך ישראל, והאחריות לכך היא של ארגון החמאס. ישראל היא המדינה החזקה באזור. אנחנו נמשיך לגלות נדיבות אזרחית וכלכלית רק אם תישמר היציבות הביטחונית. ארגוני הטרור ומחוללי ההסתה צריכים לזכור, מי שמצבו הכלכלי, האזרחי והצבאי לא יציב, הוא שיפגע קשות מכל טלטלה. ישראל יש את היכולת והיא תמשיך להפעיל את העוצמה ומגוון האמצעים שברשותה באופן שתראה לנכון.
It is important to explain that while Hamas actively prevents other terror groups from firing rockets toward Israel at this stage, in an attempt to reopen the Erez border crossing, the Israel Police cyber units noted a significant uptick in Hamas incitement on social media, including calls for disturbances in Arab cities across Israel. Consequently, police are preparing for an expected show of force by Hamas on Jerusalem's Temple Mount on the last Friday of Ramadan later this week, and will actively attempt to prevent Hamas flags from being brought into the ancient compound. Meanwhile, Israeli Foreign Minister and alternate Premier Yair Lapid condemned the Palestinian Islamist organizations for sacrificing their religion for the sake of attaining a viral video. Jerusalem's top diplomat who briefed the foreign press corps in Israel further lambasted the so-called mainstream media for providing a stage for fake news.
The only reason the police have twice entered the mosque in recent weeks to remove them is because at the same time tens of thousands of Muslim worshippers began arriving at the Temple Mount. It is not Israel that endangered worshippers. It is the terrorist organizations who endangered them. If we had not removed these rioters, there would have been a disaster. If you do not remove the rioters immediately at the start, it leads to much greater violence later. The moment the rioters were removed, the police left and ensured prayers could take place in peace. Alongside the violence, we have had to deal with an unbelievable amount of fake news and altered videos which have gone viral. Unfortunately, some of these has also found its way into mainstream media.
Minister Lapid continued by reiterating Israel's long-standing policy of maintaining the so-called status quo on the Temple Mount, in which only Muslims are allowed to worship on the location where both biblical temples were once situated, whereas non-Muslims are merely permitted to visit as tourists.
I want to clarify. Israel is committed to the status quo on the Temple Mount. Muslims pray on the Temple Mount, non-Muslims only visit. There is no change, there will be no change. We have no plans to divide the Temple Mount between religions. We call on Muslim moderates, on Muslim states, to act against these fake news and to work together with us to ensure our common interest, preservation of the status quo and calming the situation. We have to put things into proportion. What has happened on the Temple Mount is that there's been 200 or 300 extremists who Hamas and the Islamic Jihad sent to incite riots, and on the other hand, just yesterday, 95,000 worshippers came to the Temple Mount to hold a holy ceremony and to hold it in peace. During Ramadan, Israel ensured that hundreds of thousands of Muslims could go to the Temple Mount and pray at Al-Aqsa. Despite provocations by terrorist organizations, despite attempts to stroke violence. We have done and continue to do everything to enable peaceful prayer.
The Israeli foreign minister also addressed Jerusalem's decision to maintain a closure on the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip, emphasizing that so long as terror infringes Israel's security, economic measures benefiting the population of the Palestinian enclave will be held under review. It is important to know that the Erez crossing has remained closed today for the second consecutive day in response to the rocket fire out of the Gaza Strip. Once again, responding to the Israeli decision this morning, Hamas described it as an act of collective punishment that would result in escalating violence and warned that Israel would be responsible for any fallout. Meanwhile, on Israel's northern front, a rocket was launched out of Lebanon toward Israel's northern communities last night, exploding in an uninhabited field near the western Galilee community of Mitzuvah. Thankfully, no injuries or damage were reported. In a retaliatory response, the IDF spokesperson's unit confirmed that artillery fired dozens of shells at the area from which the rocket was launched, in addition to unspecified infrastructure that was also targeted, causing extensive damage.
בגדוד נמי 405 נמצא כאן, בגזרת 300, במוכנות מקסימלית בגבול הצפון, ויהיה תמיד ערוך ומוכן להגן על הגזרה הצפונית והתושבים, בדיוק כמו באירוע הנוכחי, בו הגבנו בצורה מהירה, קטלנית ואפקטיבית.
It is important to know that all of the rockets that have been fired in the past year out of southern Lebanon at Israel emanated from Palestinian towns. The prevailing Israeli security establishment's assessment is that Palestinian forces are responsible for the rocket fire in last night's case as well. Thank you for watching us. I would like to seize this opportunity to encourage you, if you're blessed by TV7 Israel News, please consider making a contribution to allow us to sustain our ongoing operations, which are exclusively based on the generosity of our viewers, just like yourself. Separately, I would like to encourage you to persist with prayer for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, in addition to our ongoing prayers, of course, for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.